Hey, my friends, welcome back to the NorthField podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Gordon, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of the program today. Super excited. We've got Monty Hale. He's the Director of Missions for the Washington and Osage County here in Oklahoma, and we talk about missions. We talk about healthy pastors. We talk about the need for healthy pastors in the church. And I'm really excited for this conversation. I pray that it blesses you and encourages you this week. Well, what in the world is an associational missionary? Mr. Monty Hale is here with us today. How are you doing, my brother?
Doing great. How are you, man? Doing fine?
Lord has been good.
Good.
Better
good,
than
good.
what's that phrase? Better than I deserve?
Yeah, I hear that. Well, it's kind of had an interesting history. Directors of Missions is my official title.
Okay.
Before that, they were called associational missionary, and then director of missions. Now the new term is associational mission strategist.
See, I grew up, I'm old, Monty,
Oh,
and I grew up with associational missionary.
Yeah,
That's what they are
yeah,
called, and
yeah.
so
And that's fine.
it's still a title.
So back then, their primary thing that they did was plant churches.
Yeah.
So they were in the church planting and trying to get other churches to partner with the planted church. Then it evolved to the director of missions, where it became more of a pastor to the pastors.
Ah, okay.
And then now it's become more of a strategist. So you're trying to get the churches to partner with one another. And so you have to think in a way that's, strategically, you got to think, okay, well, this church and this church could do this.
Sure.
You got to know the territory, and the territory is local. So in Oklahoma, there's 42 directors of missions, 42 associations. So it's all divided in that way.
Sure.
Sometimes it's geographically. You've got the two big ones, of course, in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Yeah.
They call themselves networks, which is probably better for them, because Oklahoma City has 200 and some odd churches. And
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's as big as some state conventions, So anyway, and so the director of mission, or he calls himself AMS, there doesn't do anything like what I do.
Okay.
So we have 36 churches in our association. So there's no standardization about this, Caleb. It is just like, do what you believe you need to do, and kind of under the Lord's leadership, do what you need to do in your area.
Okay.
There's nothing that says this is successful, this is not successful, which in some ways, if you're really looking for, how do I judge myself? That's a tough deal.
Come on.
Yeah. But for the most part, you can pretty well do what you believe is right and what you believe the Lord's leading you, which is, to me, is a good thing.
Well, that's very Baptist, because Baptists are autonomous.
That's exactly right.
We're autonomous.
Yeah. So I'm not a bishop. I can't come in and say, you're going to do this and this and this. However, right now, we have 8 churches that don't have pastors. And so what they're doing is calling me, how can you help us? Give us a, supply list, give us interims, and help us find it. So I'll go in and train the committees that are looking. So that's the kind of some things I do. But the biggest part of it, as far as I'm concerned, and this is just goes along with my personality, is relationships.
Come on. Yeah.
So I have to build relationships with the pastors, not only with the pastors, but also staff members and people in the pew. And so a lot of times, if the church is in trouble, if there's a conflict, I'll go in and talk to
Be the middle guy.
I'll be the mediator, kind of thing.
Yep.
And so I have to say, okay, my wife has asked me before, and I did this at the state level too.
Yeah.
But my wife has asked me before, well, whose side are you on? Are you the church side? Or are you the pastor side? And the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
That's right.
I do it all.
Both, yeah. So I have to come in and say, okay, how can we best not resolve this conflict, but manage this conflict?
Sure.
I don't think there is such a thing as conflict resolution. You're always going to have conflict. How do you manage
the nature of man is we're fallen.
Absolutely.
We're fallen in our sin nature. Even after we've been redeemed, we still have a sin proclivity. And so, we always want to be right. I mean, I always listen. who doesn't like to be right?
That's
right.
right. And you're right. I
And
always say you put two Baptists in a room, you get three opinions. So that's the way it always is. So anyway,
it's 100%.
yeah,
Yes, you will do that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's and man, I've been a Southern Baptist before I was born. I was in
Yeah,
my
me
mama's
too.
tummy.
Yeah.
I was in my
I always
mama's
say
tummy.
minus 9 months.
Right. I was basically born on the pew. So
I understand. I
we
did the cradle roll and all that stuff and stuff.
Dad was a church planter for the Southern
Yeah,
Baptist Convention up in
right.
Wyoming. So that's
You've kind of seen a lot of it.
I've
Yeah.
seen it all, man.
Yeah.
I've been, and when we got back here, Dad did interim stuff. He was
Mhm.
over at Len Baptist
Right,
over in Pawhuska
right.
there for golly 7 years.
Really?
He
I didn't know
interim
you
for
said that.
7 years.
7-year interim.
He did a 7-year interim, and then went to Trinity, and that's he
was there for
he died in the pulpit. So
yeah. Yeah, so that's what I do. I dealt with your dad, and even when I before I was the director of missions, I was here as a pastor, and so he and I were good friends then, and he partners with us. We started a Chinese mission. There was a group of Chinese people, Christians, who were here because of Phillips. Phillips Petroleum had just went into China.
Yeah.
And so they had several people here, and one of the little girls, she was a teenager. She came to our church, and that's when I found out there was a whole community of Chinese people.
Oh, wow.
And so we opened the door with her and her mom and her mom's mom, her grandma, all three Christians, strong Christians.
Come on.
They had been in the underground church, and then came in. And so I visited with them. They lived across the street from the church, and we started that Chinese mission there. Got a pastor who came up from Tulsa. He moved here. The church was going well, and so I approached your dad.
Mhm.
No, here's how it happened. Your dad called the director of missions then, Paul Kuntz,
Mhm.
and he said, "Hey, can we partner with this? I want to be a part of it." And so Paul called me. He said, "Would that be okay?" I said, "Well, of course."
Why? Yes. Come on.
I said, "Why would you think that?" He said, "Well, a lot of churches don't want to do that. They want it to be their own." I said, "Well, look, I'm not interested in that at all." And so Trinity gave a monthly stipend.
I remember that.
And the pastor there was named Jesse. He came over to Trinity occasionally and spoke. And so that's what associational missions is, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
So, like we just had the tornado.
Yeah.
Barnstall was devastated. And so First Baptist Church downtown, Bartlesville, just took an offering just for Barnstall, $11,000.
Praise the Lord.
And gave that to them.
Praise the Lord.
That's what associational missions is.
Those
kinds of things.
And that's the thing I love about Baptist is that we can network.
Yeah.
We do network well. They have the cooperation program and the co-op, and it's helping one another, getting with one another, and being connected in.
That's right. And it's a choice. It's not something that you're conscripted to do, or you got to give so much amount of money in order to be a Southern Baptist, or to be
back to that autonomy. You can. It's fantastic. I love it. So, and you have history. You were, because I'm interviewing pastors.
Yes.
And so I'm doing this series of interviewing pastors.
Right.
And that's you're historically, you pastored Eastern Heights for a season, and then you've pastored all over the place.
I have. I was in seminary. I started pastoring a little church up in the northwest corner of Missouri. I was in Kansas City, and we drove back and forth. You said you drive to your church 50 miles.
50 miles, yeah.
Ours was 79 miles.
Come
for
on.
3 years. We wore out a good car doing that, but I got all of my first done. First Baptist,
Sure.
all that, and the people were very gracious, of course. Then I came to Oklahoma City to a church out on the fringe of rural urban fringe is what I called it, of Oklahoma City, southeast side of Oklahoma City, to a church that I was the 13th pastor of this church, but the church was only 22 years old.
Oh, wow.
So they had been fighting and fighting and fighting. It had 3 major splits.
Wow.
And so it was down to about, I guess, 35, 40 people.
Yeah.
But they had just built a new parsonage on the land where they were going to build a new church.
Yeah.
And we moved into the parsonage out over there, and then we relocated it. I stayed for 7 years.
Okay. Yeah.
So I kind of broke the
back of that.
year and a half.
Come on.
6 months, whatever it was.
Well, that is an average thing for most pastors, is 18 months to 2 years. It's the national average.
Right.
But Bartlesville is an interesting place There's been so many pastors that have stayed for years and I mean decades.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I look at, my dad, he was at Trinity for 30
Right,
something years.
right.
I know that Paul Rummage, he was at Southern for
a long time.
a long time,
Yeah.
but before him, Sam Porter, and just, I mean, all those guys.
Yeah, so when I went to state work, I pastored 2 other churches after that, but and ended here at Eastern Heights. But when I went to state work, that was what we were working for. I was at State Convention in Missouri and then South Carolina, and we were working for pastoral health, which is a big, big deal.
Huge.
Now, I don't know if you know this probably, but while I was there, for the first 10 years I was there, we had a pastor who had taken their life every year. So we had for 9 years. And then the the 10th year, we broke that. And then I was there 2 more years. But what we found out with that is pastoral health is so important.
Come on.
Because pastors look at these gauges. So there's a gauge that says, I'm physically, my physical health. That's easy to see.
Yep.
My spiritual health. Whether it's good or bad, I can still see the gauge.
Sure.
The gauge they ignore is the emotional health.
Come on.
And so what they're doing is that they're just riding it out until there's nothing left.
Yeah.
And burnout was terrible. These guys, we found out, I did some research with every one of these guys who had taken their life. 2 things were the factors. One was diabetes.
Really?
Yeah. And they weren't taking care of themselves with diabetes. Well, with diabetes, you have mood swings.
Sure.
If you don't take care of yourself. And the second one was just letting people get to them. It was just like, and they were alone. They didn't have anybody to talk to. So we formed a group statewide called Band of Brothers.
Yep.
Which it was really great. We had these groups, affinity groups that met. And I didn't give them an agenda. I didn't say, hey, go study this book or do this Bible study. I just said, do life together.
Yeah.
And they did those things. I mean, they looked at books and stuff like that. But what happened with that was it got enough momentum that it stopped this stuff. And I could go back and show you statistics that we've measured where it just quit. And so pastoral health, I mean, you got that many guys who just, I mean, I could tell you there was all kinds of different ways that they did this, but the last one, I sat in the funeral for the last one, and the guy, I mean, it was just self-murder, and you just kind of say,
no, I get it,
and they didn't even mention it in the they didn't say that what happened,
No, I get it.
It was all denial.
Keep that under
let's
because this is the thing that I just find so sad, I guess, is that pastors are human beings too.
Yeah.
We're just as messy as the guys and gals in the pew.
Yeah.
We just have the persona of we're on the platform, so we've got it all figured out. But we don't have it figured out. We don't have it figured out. We're just as messy. We have just as many sad moments.
Sometimes worse.
Yes. And being a pastor is a lonely gig.
It's tough.
It really is. And I heard a guy, I listened to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he said, most pastors are lonely by choice because we isolate, and we don't want people to know we're weak. Yeah. We don't want people to know or
that we're sinners, or that we've got problems, or we've got, it's like, come on.
You realize my wife and I fight occasionally. Yeah. What? Are you kidding? Yeah.
Early in our ministry, I had there was a lady in our church, brand new Christian lady. And she was working with my wife one time at the church, and she said, do you go to the grocery store? And she just laughed. And I said, you should have told her, no, I just sit underneath the trees and the ravens feed.
Lord feeds me and just hands this out.
Yeah, so people don't realize that.
And they don't. And it's one of those things where we have to be intentional in our friendships.
Yep.
Like we have to be and I've been on this kick where I want to, a king's table is what I like to call it.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. And so I want to have a guy that's willing to be a Nathan, be a Joab, and be a Jonathan.
Yeah.
And just really just push. And that I heard that on a podcast.
Yeah.
That wasn't my idea. I just heard it. So, but man, I love nothing new. As Adrian Rogers told my dad in Murphy's Steakhouse, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
And so that's what I want for my life. And if we have those things, Um, I'm telling you, it'll transform.
Yep.
I think the depression stuff will go away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, depression's huge.
it's huge in ministry. And we should be, as Christians, I keep saying this, we should be the most joyous people in the world.
I know.
And because we win. And because Christ is won, we win. And
yeah, and of course, you talk about famous pastors like Spurgeon, who dealt with depression.
Sure.
And what happens is we have untreated depression.
Yep.
So I've stood before pastors, before retreats and stuff, and said, "Hey guys, go to your doctor and tell him what's going on, and let him run some tests, get a physical, understand where you're at. And if you're diagnosed with depression, is not something that you're just going to pray harder and you're going to get over. There's so many good medications out there, even if you take it for a short time, until you get to the place you need to be."
I'm not anti-medicine, and I'm telling you, we had a conference back in February, and one of the pastors who was speaking really harped on, we need to be, in order for us to conquer, we must conquer our physical health and our emotional health. And I took that real seriously, and I started, okay, I'm gonna make sure and try to multiple times a week get out and just go for a walk.
Yes.
Just get out and go for a walk. And now I'm walking, 3 and 7 miles in the evenings. And
consistent exercise is important.
I've lost 30 pounds.
I know.
And
where'd that go?
Bro, I was chewing up antacids like candy. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with acid reflux, and I had, between that and my mom's passing, I had all this emotional craziness.
I know.
I'm telling you, over the last couple of months, I feel like a new guy.
Yeah, it's good.
And I think if pastors, and historically, Andy, you look at, I saw one guy, it's funny, it was a video, and he was standing behind the pulpit, and he's just, just big, huge, and he's talking about how he can correct, he's independent fundamental Baptist guy, and he's like, the King James, I can dissect and he pops his jacket, and I'm like, yeah, you can dissect the Greek, but can you button your jacket?
You can't button your jacket. Under a lot of pressure.
And I'm like, come on, bro. And I think if pastors would, the majority of pastors have the time to dedicate to fixing their physical health.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I was probably pre-diabetic.
Probably.
And I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But man, I've changed the way I eat. I eat a lot more eggs, a lot more protein.
Yep.
I've cut, my donut habit is gone. I'm sorry, donut shops. I know you were hoping for my money, but it's not coming my way anymore. But I'm telling you, if we change the way we start living our lives, I'm telling you, and getting brothers around us that love us, and that are willing to
be honest with you.
Yes, and they will call you on your junk.
That's right. Because hey, you need to you're saying this, but you're not living that.
Yeah.
That's so important. Yeah, I've been to the Southern Baptist Convention before. One time I went, it's been several years ago. I was sitting up way up, and I was watching pastors come in and out. I thought, we are the most unfit, the most overweight.
Yep.
And I deal with it too. My wife and I walk a mile and a half a day.
Yeah.
And just, while we're talking, we just kind of take the day and debrief. And so it's important that you do that, but it is important that you have a band of brothers around.
It is. And what it's fascinating. The thing that really got me on this journey was at Thanksgiving, my aunt was here.
Yeah.
My dad's sister. And she walks 5 to 7 miles a day.
Wow.
Aunt Linda, please, if you hear this, I think she's 77. I think.
Shouldn't have said that, bro.
She looks like she's 50.
Oh, that's great.
But she told me, she's like, the best thing for you is walking.
Yeah.
And getting out and listen, when I get out and walk, I got through Revelation chapter 1 through 12. Just listen.
That's a good thing.
I got through 12 chapters of Revelation. And so I'm like, I'm listening to the scriptures, or I listen to music, and I spend time praying.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we need.
Right. Exactly.
And then telling people about it, and just to make sure, hey, did you go for a walk today?
Yeah.
Just keeping you accountable.
Yeah. And so we go through times, just like I just said, with the times that we've had just here recently with the tornado and that kind of thing. And so it's going to be tough times that it's distracting. but also spiritually tough times
Come on.
and all kinds of things. And so you have in the middle of that, it's the hardest thing to do is this, in the middle of your crisis is to take a time to have restorative rest.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about going and lay down some necessarily, but you need to get good sleep. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's some things that fills up your cup that'll make that gauge that's on empty. How do you fill it up?
Yeah.
How do you fill up? There's so many guys that are just, I watch them. They're just running on empty.
Yep.
And I think, how in the world you're running on fumes, dude?
Come on, man.
You're going to run out of gas. Yep. And there's a lot of times I'll go in and say to these guys, hey, you need to. Oh, they ignore me. I got too much to do.
I'm busy. I'm
trying
busy.
to grow a church. That's the one I think. You're going to grow a church? Come on. And so I just say to them, look, it's time for you to please take some time to have restorative rest. Here's the thing that my wife taught me about this. You need to have that every day. Take a day, sometime during your day, and just take some time just to whatever fills your cup. Every week, every month, and every year.
Yeah.
So it's longer for each one of those things.
Sure.
So every day, hey, take 30 minutes and take the walk, do the other things, but also find a time during your day where you just do something that really fills you
just fires you up. Yeah.
And then every month, take a day.
Yep.
Take that, we ignore Sabbath, so we're the ones that preach about it. You're supposed to show up for church, blah, blah. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't take the restorative rest.
We need a restorative rest.
Every month, take a couple of days and then every year, you better take a vacation. I used to have friends that used to brag all the time and say, well, I haven't had a vacation in 5 years. And I want to say, well, shame on you.
That sounds crazy. Yeah, you need to go.
Why don't you take 2 weeks and go with your 2 weeks? You got to be kidding. The world would fall apart. No, here's what's going to happen. If you pass away today,
yes,
2 weeks from now, your church is going to be looking for your replacement.
Yep.
First week, they're going to be sad.
Sure.
They're going to go like, no offense.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you.
First week, they're going to say, yeah, well, we loved him and blah. The second week, they're going to form a committee to call for your replacement.
Yep.
Because you're not irreplaceable. The kingdom
100%.
of God does not depend upon you. Your church doesn't depend.
No. And that's you look through the entire, the guy that I would thought, man, he should have deserved like a whole part of the Bible was talking about the life of Moses after he died. Yeah. It's like he went into the ground and next guy. Yeah, and I'm Joshua. And I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like Moses was such an influential guy. And then he's like, he died. And now Joshua is,
and then he was trying to do everything himself. And his father-in-law, who's an unbeliever, came to him and says, hey, you can't do all this yourself. You need to appoint some people to do help. Duh.
You need help. You're not.
We all think we think everything rises and falls on us. How egotistical.
It is.
That is just like, no, the universe doesn't surround you.
Yeah.
The Lord's got this.
God's sovereign.
He's
sovereign and he's in control. That's he's not up in heaven chasing ambulances.
And he's not wringing his hands thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do next?
Oh, he's sovereign over all things.
He knows what's going to happen.
Amen.
And you need to give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And quit thinking so highly of yourself. I'm not trying.
Listen,
I'm not trying to beat on pastors. I'm just saying there comes a point where you've just got to say, hey, I've got a life. I've got a family. I've got here's hobbies I like to do. Live your life.
Live your life. And that was one of the things that I was so growing up with a dad that was a pastor and had a regular job. Bivocational.
Listen, those guys you guys are my heroes.
I'm serious. But here's the deal. He had so many minister friends that were just ignoring their families. Yeah. And I'm like, the Bible is real clear. If you do this, you're worse than an infidel. And people say, well, because the scripture says provide. And everybody thinks, oh, that means financial. Yeah. No. Yes, it does.
But not all.
But there's also,
be emotionally present.
And that was
spiritually present.
And
that doesn't mean you have to have all this structured. That's your gig. Okay. That's your way of doing things. Fine. If you got to have the structure, do the structure.
Get it.
But be real.
Yeah.
Be real in your home.
And sometimes just going in and playing a video game with my son. Okay.
That restores you and restores me.
We're just like we play together. Yeah. He's right next to me. We're laughing and carrying on. And sometimes he'll have a buddy over. We'll be in there together. And okay, cool, whatever.
That's the other thing. So when we were here before, since we're just talking, when we were here before, my daughter used to invite her friends to our house.
Cool.
And every one of them were from dysfunctional homes.
Yeah.
Not that ours didn't have dysfunction too.
Oh, I get it. No.
But they'd come into our house. One little girl came into our house one time and she said, "It always smells good in here." And I thought, okay, what does that mean? Well, what it means is my wife always had some food.
Yep.
She cleaned the house,
Hospitality.
all those things. And then she knew that whatever she did there, she was going to be accepted and loved and cared for. Now, my daughter wasn't perfect. Come on now. But,
no,
you
none of us
but
are.
the kids. But here's the thing, Caleb. I had the pleasure to baptize about half a dozen.
Ooh, praise the Lord. Come on.
And she, like I said, she wasn't perfect or anything like that, but the Christian influence was there.
Yeah.
I didn't preach to them, we didn't sing hymns and all that kind of thing when they came, but they knew that they could trust us, and they knew that we cared about them.
Radical biblical hospitality.
It's incredible.
It is absolutely a game changer. And I have seen in my own life, like where we've opened up and this is I've been saying this, and I really believe it. The book of Revelation was written not so we'd build bunkers and walls, but bigger tables and have a restored spine.
Yep.
That Jesus wins, and because of this, man, I want to open my doors and I want people to get around my table, and I want to share the hope of Christ.
Be on the earthly table so that they'll be at the heavenly.
Hey, come on.
That's the way to do that.
That's what I'm talking about.
In any event, I just think that we've got to come to the point where we're real in our home.
Yes.
If we're real in our home, when people are invited into our home, we don't have to put on a big facade.
Come on.
It's just who we are. Just sitting around in our pajamas or whatever we're doing, reading the paper.
Yep. We've got so my neighbor down the street, he comes almost every Thursday night. Him and his family, they come in, we just hang out. Yeah. And we started it as a Bible study, right? But it ends up questions and then conversations, and then we open, and the Bible's present, and it's in the center, but it's not a structure. Okay, now we turn to John chapter 4, and it's like it's what
you're not preaching.
No, I'm not preaching. It's like, what kind of questions do you have? What's going on? How's your life going? What's been going on? And it is a sweet time. It is. We started at 6:30, and one night we got done at 10:30. Yeah. And we're like, holy cow, it's 10:30 already. Wow, what in the heck?
I wish we would be able to do that more. We haven't. It takes time. But anyway.
No, it does.
My daughter now lives in Virginia with her husband. He's getting ready to retire from the Army.
Oh, wow.
But they have built a group of friends in the neighborhood. Yeah. And their whole idea, especially my son-in-law, we're going to share the gospel.
Yes.
So you put that in the heart of your kids when they're growing up, and then they're going to do that. Now it's not a big, again, with him, he's an Army guy and he's a Ranger, so he's rough and tough and all that kind of thing, but he has a heart full of the Lord. And so she does too. She's a people gatherer.
Come on. Yes.
And so she gets the people together, and they have all these kind of things. And they have the parties, like you said, out in the front, and they do the fire and all that kind of deal. But the conversation always comes around to, why are y'all different?
Yeah, why do you do these things?
Yeah, and so
it's amazing. I'm all for missions. I mean, I think you should go across the ocean. But I think before you do that, I know my neighbor across the street. I know my neighbor. I know that this little young couple over here. I know the college students that live next door. I know that this single lady lives next door to me. I know like my neighbor down the street and I'm next to them. I know their names. I know their kids' names. They've been in my house. Right. We need to be, if we believe that Christ is returning and we believe that Christ is who he says he is, talk about it.
That's right.
Tell people.
Be who you really are.
Be on mission.
The problem is who you really are is fake.
Come on.
That's what the devil wants.
Yeah, he wants
you to be
the
real.
poser.
That's right.
The poser. I want you to be and be tough. And that's one of the things that my wife and I, sometimes we have the vomit of the mouth too much. We're just like, we're honest, right? What? Me talk too much? Be honest about what you are, and be honest about the messy stuff. Like, listen, I'm a wretch. Yeah. But I've been forgiven. Yeah. I'm saved by God's grace.
God's done for me.
I don't deserve to go to heaven. But neither do you. No. But here's this is the good news, is that Jesus came to seek and to save guys like you and me.
Yeah, exactly right.
That are just messy, gross, fallen guys that Jesus says, hey, I love you. Yeah. What? You love me?
Yeah. So that's the heart of what I do. I build that relationships with pastors who, in turn will build their relationship with the people in their church and the people right around them. The old saying, don't fly over a mission field to get to a mission field, is so important. You know, Osage County, 60%.
Yeah.
And not unsaved, but no faith relationship at all.
Nothing at all.
Here, it's about 40%.
In Washington County?
In Washington County. That's because we have more churches, there's more people.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, I mean, 50,000 people,
Yeah.
40% of 50,000. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. It is. I'm not,
Anyway,
I went to Dewey, so I don't
yeah.
know.
So anyway, it's what you've got to see and know right here.
Yeah.
Right here is there's people that need you. And the pastors need to be real, or their people are not going to be.
Amen. We need authenticity,
Yeah.
genuineness.
Yeah.
And it's okay to it's okay to let people know that you're not perfect.
You're actually a person.
You're a human being and you've not figured
That's
out life. So
that's right.
Well, man, brother, I appreciate you taking time to talk about
man,
this
it's my
in this
pleasure.
series. It's been a delight, and I've enjoyed our conversation, brother.
Same here.
Yep.
Same here.
Talk to
God
you
bless
soon.
you. Okay.
Blessings on you as well.